Hello and welcome. Today is, of course, Miscellaneous Friday. However, today we will be doing world building once more, as hopefully we get into the actual world building and less of the rambling. Here we are. So, our plan is... Here we are. For the most part, we will be doing this one in the newsroom, of course, here, mostly because we have the desk here. So, today we'll be covering some of my favorite parts of world building. We will be half talking about world building and half actually doing some world building. So, well, where to begin? So yes, this one should be, theoretically, a bit less rambling, a bit more world building. So, speaking of the topic of the day, we will be working on, specifically, well, how to put it, details. Well, small details, not how to... Basically, I don't remember the word for it, but there is a description of it. In simple terms, we'll be working on a lot of the smaller details, you know, like when you pick up an item in a game and there's a little paragraph of text describing it, or a little paragraph of text describing the world, the item, the little bits of lore. One of my favorite parts, because these descriptions can provide vast and good little behind the scenes for your players and get them more involved in the world. Who produced this product? What's a little bit of the environment of this world? It makes the world feel, it helps make the world feel living because there's descriptions for these things. So that's what we'll work on today. A lot of that. So let's get to it. Here we are. So to begin, I suppose we'll start with a basic. Oh, let's also open our other file here. We have our normal sheet that we work with, but we also might be doing some work on our map. It'll help us figure out what exactly we're working on. Give us some ideas. We might make a little bit of map stuff too, but our primary focus here today shall be working on descriptions. So let's start. Oh, we also might do some statting, of course, of items and the like. Mostly, I mean, we're going to work on a lot of things, but our focus is going to be on the details. So, as soon as I pop this open, here we are. Let's get to work. Where to begin? Well, we need a first topic, of course. So, for that, I'm not going to bother switching the screen just this second. We will just look at this and get an idea. Well, let's start with something rather related to our solo Sunday matches. Well, not really related to them in whole, but last time on our solo Sunday match, the police forces arrived with helicopters. Let us write some descriptions for these Terran Nation helicopters. That will be a good starting topic before we move on to what other things we'll write descriptions for. Okay? Let's see. So we need a brief description and where to begin with that. So we'll start. We'll skip name just because names are not my strong suit in working on this kind of thing. So I usually spend time working on the name, so we'll skip over the name and work on, yeah, we'll work on the details. The blank is a... We have to figure out what it is. Well, we know it's a helicopter, but what I mean by that is we are working on details for this thing. So, yes, it is a, like, government police helicopter, but one of the first questions we should ask ourselves is was it always that? It is, as far as we've seen, unarmed. That could be. So, there are many ways to go about this. So, for instance, it could be a civilianized military helicopter, then acquired by the local police forces, or it could be a civilian helicopter acquired by the local police forces. Either or, and I will assume this one is a civilian helicopter, given the fact that they're responding to a, well, quite a gunfight. Not that they would have anything armed and, well, too armed in the first place, but let's see. Let's open back up our file. Here we are. Civilian model helicopter. Produced by... Here we are. This will take 1 second while I quickly open my law book and find a suitable corporation. Or we could say it's produced locally. That is also an option. If it's produced locally, that actually gives us more options to work with. In that case, so in normal world building, that doesn't necessarily give you more options to work with. But due to the fact that we are obviously working with Galactic Requiem, choosing a pre-existing faction or organization, corporation, would tie our law to that corporation, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But as we're going over world building here, we might as well use it locally. That gives us more options to build upon the law of this local world. We can always tie this world to other corporations and so forth as we go. It doesn't prevent us from doing that as we go. We could even say that parts of this helicopter are produced by a mega corporation from elsewhere. But we'll say, to begin with, that this helicopter is produced locally. Unfortunately, that does have a downside for me in particular, because that means we would require a name of the organization or corporation. So we'll just input local org. We'll go over probably naming things some other time. Of course, I'll go over naming these things some other time, but specifically, we'll go over methods of naming and how to go about all that, and basically all that. We'll go over that in a different world building episode. But for now, we're going to skip any name we can't think of quickly. So, let's see here. To begin, produced locally by blank. So we are. Due to its versatility, the helicopter is often used no, due to its versatility, the helicopter what I want to say. So I'm thinking on wording, but what I want to say is that it has a lot of purposes and is very much modular and is used by a lot of groups for a lot of purposes. But you can't just say, I mean, you can just say that. So another thing, long ago, back when I took many classes in writing, one thing I learned, which I'm actually not doing here, which is not ideal, but one of the things I learned in writing a long while back is when writing a first draft and the like, one of the ways to go about it is to just throw your ideas, your thoughts onto the paper as to not get stuck. If you get it all down on your first pass, you write it all down and just get the thoughts out there. And then on a following pass, you refine and so forth. But to just basically get into the method of writing, get into the flow of writing, you just throw the words down on the page. Don't worry about spelling. Don't worry about the necessarily about the wording or the order or any of that. You just get your thoughts down there, and then you go back over it on another pass, of course. You take several passes of it to get it done, but to get words out there. So I will try and do that and not delay. But here, well, I must admit, when working here on the world building, sometimes I get dragged into the whole trying to get it good, for you all. I don't want to provide a half-done product. So we'll so we'll just try and get the words down so it doesn't take us forever to refine and modify it. We should just get the words on the page. But we will eventually go over, well, I will eventually go over and refine it. I don't think you'll find me refining the work that interesting because it's just a lot of me sitting here thinking, going, hmm, 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 maybe? Because I'm considering how to go about it, and that's not what we want here, of course, probably. I mean, unless that's what you want, but I doubt that. So we'll just get the words on the page, and I'll refine it some other time. Due to its versatility, the helicopter is used in a used in a variety of roles by a wide variety of buyers. Let me make one quick check. Okay, good. Just making sure the zoom of it is large enough to be visible on screen. Sometimes, usually when I'm using the smaller window for this, it makes it somewhat hard to see. Specifically the, where is it? The smaller sheet. Anyway, where were we? So, that's our very basis. Of course, it will be refined into something more acceptable. Wide variety of buyers. Now, what we should do, well, we are going to be more freeform and not refine it. We will have to do a little bit of research, of course, still. Because, well, if you want something to be, how do I put this? When world building, if you want something to be tied in, there are, you don't, so there are many ways to go about it. There are many ways to go about this. But personally, I like having extra bits, just small bits of detail, to me adds so much to a thing. For instance, we could just describe the helicopter. Like I mean, of course we will, but You could just describe the helicopter. However, what if we have a little section that's literally just talking about, how do you put this? Like the helicopter blades. The helicopter blades are produced by this other corporation. Just a little bit of details about that adds so much more to it. Because, sure, here's information about the helicopter, but now we've tied it to another corporation that's producing the helicopter blades. Do they build other parts? Do they provide to a variety of manufacturers? All these questions are brought up just because we've added a little bit of information saying that that a different corporation produces the blades. And that adds more to it. And well, this other corporation produced the blades. Why? Well, they produce the blades because another corporation used to produce the helicopter blades for them. A different one, not the one that does now. However, due to increasing regulations and standards and an increased weight in the helicopter, they had to switch their manufacture of blades out to this new manufacturer. And this has caused a rivalry between the two manufacturers. And you get that just by considering adding details about who manufactures the blades. Of course, in a setting, nobody, well, yeah, I'm pretty sure very few, I wouldn't say nobody, but you know, you don't need to say who produces every single bolt, every single part of the helicopter. You can, but I mean, that's a bit much. Like I said, the goal is to have like a couple of paragraphs at most. A couple of paragraphs at most. But like, you know, a small description. Like I explained earlier, sort of like an item description. Here we are. So let us continue our writing. Here we go. Helicopter can hold a total of 12 passengers and has a crew of 2. And I will note for my own purposes, has a minimum of 1. There we are. And we will add that whole helicopter blade thing. However, due to the fact that we don't have any names we're going with, because we're going to make this place have its own series of corporations and the like, we're going to, well, you know, input Corp 2 name produces the helicopter. Corporation 2 produces the rotor components of the helicopter. Well, the way we'd go about this, like I said, I should be just putting the words on page, but would I put it before? But we're not going to refine it. We're just getting the words down there. Here we go. After a dispute with Corp 3, the original supplier of the robot components, and we'll refine that some other time. I will provide to you the final thing, the final work of it once I'm finished refining it, but we'll probably cover that on one of the Worldbuilding Wednesdays. We'll go over the refined variants to show you the final product, because like I said, it's probably not going to be entertaining to see the refining. It's just going to be me doing a lot of thinking. Let's see here. So I will make a note for myself. So when world building, just because you're writing a section for a description doesn't mean you shouldn't, as the world builder, seize upon the opportunity. For instance, right here, what I'm doing is making a personal note. This is a note of the thing, as I said earlier, the two corporations are now somewhat rivals in the industry, specifically Corp 2 and 3, which are not the main producer of the helicopter. They are tied with them due to their history, but they're not the main producer. So I'm just making a note for myself that there are rivalries between this. Therefore, when I go over additional things, I can look back and see that these two corporations do have a rivalry, and I can build upon that. So if you have any little ideas as you're going, don't forget to stop and take notes for yourself. Just because you're writing a description doesn't mean you shouldn't take notes for yourself. Here we are. This has caused a rivalry between Corp 1. Nope, not 1. 1 would be the main producer. 2 and 3. There we are. It doesn't really matter what order that I've named them in. Like, for instance, one could say, wouldn't Corp 3 be Corp 2 because they were the original producers? But it doesn't really matter because we're going to actually name them at some point, and then Corp 2 and Corp 3 will just be replaced with the Corp names. It's mostly just a placeholder, basically. Yeah, well. So, let's see. What else to do? I suppose I could show the block off. While we're here, anyway. This will take half a second, as I need to grab the block. Here we are. Go to our items catalog. Oh, I should have done this the other way. It's fine. Okay, we go to our items catalog. We go to our vehicle stat block. Copy that. Go over to here. Well, if it loads, that is. Sometimes these documents take a moment to load. Here we are. Okay, good, we're back. There we are. So here we have the stat block. So usually, as you see, the tops of the vehicle name. So what we'd do is we'd have the helicopter name, this, and technically at the end, because the end would be the extra info section, we'd have the little blurb of information. Usually, however, we break it off with a little line. Well, it depends on what variant we're storing it in, so we won't break it off with a little line there. Okay. So this here, I mean, this is slightly off topic from working on the thing, but it is still on the topic. Here in Galactic Requiem, we use, this is not necessarily the final sheet variant, but we have basic, what's the word I'm thinking? We have a lot of stats we like covering. Not all these are used in every single vehicle, but, you know, due to the way we run Galactic Requiem, vehicles have health, sometimes they have armor, shields, they almost always have an armor class, that's what you roll to hit them, and damage reduction, movement, etc., etc. This is specifically for ground vehicles. Of course, there's also a separate one for space vehicles because they have slightly different rules, but we're not here to get into the rules system of Galactic Requiem and how that all works, because we'd be here all day. Let's see. I mean, we might sometime. But one of the problems that we have here that makes it slightly difficult to go through things, I suppose. I could speed it up by... So, way back, I had a file that had all the rules in it. And then, what's the word I'm thinking of? Basically, I edited it, and I need to add a new index, basically. Once I add that index, searching will be far quicker. Specifically, I have to use the offline version for it, if I want things to run faster. Anyway, I'm not going to work on the index right now, of course. We are world building. Let's see. What else to cover? Well, same things. We're going to go over this stuff, so let's see. This is create a rivalry between Corp 2 and 3. Very good. Let's see. We will make a line between them. Okay. I suppose we'll talk a little bit about the variants. Here we are. 1 second while I open a little conversion thing here. There is one thing I want to check. If the helicopter can hold 12 people, how many can it hold if it's not a person? Not a... Well, one more second. Okay, good. Sorry, just a little bit more reading. There we go. We will round that to 400 pounds. I believe. You should probably do it in metric. Here we are. If we are going to use the metric version, that is, I mean, we're obviously going to round up the metric, so 200 kilograms. That way, because we usually use tons. So that is going to be, here we are. Do we want to have full or only partial? That's the question I want to consider. Are we getting rid of all the crew? Because if we go with 10, we can just have a round, but and be like 2 tons. But if we decide to go with all 12, that becomes 2.4 tons. I suppose we'll just round it up. We'll say that 12 will just round up. You're able to get a bit more out of it. So the cargo variant of the helicopter carries no passengers, but can carry an additional 2.5 tons. There we are. So we have that there. So we now know that there is a cargo variant that can carry more. One other thing we kind of want to check is how much should this thing be able to carry at base? Like, on top of that, because of course, Just because it carries passengers doesn't mean it doesn't carry any cargo. So let's see. Little bit of math. Okay, we'll say it can carry a base 2.5 tons. So the helicopter can carry a total of 5 tons. Well, if it's the cargo variant. Okay. So we have a versatile helicopter. And that will be the one that they are using there. We don't really need to stat it right now, but we always can. So what we do, for the most part, or what I do for the most part, for stats, by the way, is I have a bunch of, what's the word I'm looking for? Generic template vehicles. Specifically, there's several of them, but they're generic template vehicles. So in order to make a wide variety, I think I've been over this once before, but not here, so we'll go over this. There are a variety of generic template vehicles. Of course, we can always make more generic template vehicles, but in order to make a wide variety, because the galaxy is so large, a galaxy is large after all, we have a variety of generic template vehicles. They are listed in our system in the way we list generic template things, which is... Where is it? Where's our item catalog? Well, it's not important. Point is, we name things with like generic template 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way up to whatever we want. And then we have separate variants, which are like minor nation this, or Omnicorp this, or whatever corporation produces, or whatever nation produces, and then the variant and the version, or generic variant and version. And then from there, if there is a modification because the galaxy is large, we'll take one of these generic templates or other templates, and then we will use a roller, sort of like a random generator, to basically say, okay, so that is cargo capacity, and that is up. So the cargo capacity of this variant is up 90% of the generic template variant. And basically, we can go through each of the things saying like, so is its health different? No. Is its armor different? No. Or you can do the other version, which is you roll, and there are this many differences, and then roll on the differences and see which things are different, and then modify it. And that basically gives us a wide variety of different models of objects, which change. Well, some of the changes might be slight, some might even be the same, but gives us options of different things produced by different locations that could be the same, could be different. But then on top of these little to large could be big differences, but on top of these differences, we also have the law. And then from there, we can also add additional differences using modifications. Specifically, we can add a bunch of additional things such as, how do I put this? Like, so what you see before you, there's all these base stats, but that doesn't mean we can't have additional stats like accessories, qualities, mods, additional little bits of information. That's what extra info is for. So we could have something that's literally like, in stormy weather, this type of helicopter takes a penalty to its sensor range on top of that, and that provides us even more options and variants in the way we want to describe it. And any little description we have here can add more lore. Due to a sensor system manufactured by Corporation Blank. Due to budgetary constraints, they had their sensor system produced by Blank because it was shown in their records that people would still buy the helicopter up to a reasonable degree. So in stormy weather, this other corporation's sensors have this problem. Therefore, this helicopter's sensors have this problem. And you can just basically customize and add all this little bits of changes to stats that may or may not make a difference depending on the situation that affect things. And this can add to the world. At least for my players, they tend to actually quite like the what's the word I'm looking for this? The little bits of details and little things like that. So, you know, like bits like that. For instance, here's an example. Forever ago, it was years back. A few of our players were on a world, just some world somewhere. I forget where. It was in the deep frontier, going about their business. Untali. The world was Untali. There is a specifically assault rifle that we have statted from that world. Its own custom assault rifle variant and etc. But specifically, I believe they purchased a suit on that world, a fancy suit, with just a little bit of lore added in the middle of gameplay, talking about this fancy suit produced by the famous suit designer Armano Caspali. And so, you know, and these fancy suits have popped up in the frontier in a variety of things, and sometimes the players will try and acquire this specific brand of fancy suit when they see it. For instance, in a different situation, on a different world in the deep frontier, our players were not tied with, but basically hired by I forget his name, basically by a corporation owner, a rich corporation owner, hired them and specifically was like, we're going to attend a fancy party, and here's a series of, you can't go dressed like mercenaries. Everybody will look and, you know. So I have a few armored fancy suits available for your purchase. Well, not your purchase, but basically basically for you, not even loan. He just gave them some fancy armored suits to wear while at the place. And so they had a series of options, and one of the options of suits available was Armano Caspali, and they were like, that one, because it had popped up before. And it's just little details like that that build a world. So in the Deep Frontier, there are Armano Caspali suits out there for acquiring, although extremely expensive. I mean, an Armano Caspali suit will run you, like, for the cheaper ones, we're talking like 50,000 to 100,000 credits. So, you know, like just this little bits of lore that have occurred because in the middle of just running the game, I was like, oh yes, a suit brand, Armano Caspali, makes super fancy suits. And that's grown into there's this designer out there in the frontier who makes these suits. And so, yeah, just bits like that can expand a world. Let's see here. So, let's scroll down a little bit, I suppose. Let's see. What part should we work on of this thing? I mean, we could always stat it, but I don't think we're really working on statting here today. We're talking about details. One thing we could do is not focus on any one topic. We could just throw down just Imperial fleets deciding to fly by the bridge. Not sure if you heard that. Imperial fleet, well, specifically not, I mean, they're technically part of Imperial fleet, but, you know, fighter pilots, you know how fighter pilots are. Anyway, like I said, not sure if you heard that, but that was rather loud on my end. we'll have uh, we'll have a report written up on that. Don't you worry. Anyway, where were we? So, yes. Sorry, now I'm slightly distracted. One never expects conscripts to break. Well, okay, one expects conscripts to break everything, but one never expects fleet to allow conscripts to fly right by the bridge of the ship. Oh, and they're back. Yep, they're back. Anyway, well, oh, okay, we should be good now. Like I said, not sure if you can hear that. Hopefully you can't. But like I said, it's very loud over here. Anyway, we are in atmosphere after all. We are currently, well, stationed slightly above my Capitol building. So, here we are. Let's see here. So, oh, I suppose we could just cover that real fast. I mean, I'm supposed to not ramble, but did you know that there's a variety of ship types and engine varieties and so forth? And Imperial ships can hover in atmosphere, as can most modern ships, to be fair. I mean, like, Elysian ships can't, for the most part, but depends on the ship type, because of engine designs and so forth. We'll probably cover that in our lore series when we cover starships and starship design. Well, we'll cover starships, not starship design. We'll cover starship design probably in a world building series sometime. But starships have a bunch of components that have different stats and variables. Like I said, they have a different stat block. Anyway, we're off topic. Let's get back on topic. So, what I was saying was that we can just throw a lot of little details down here to basically build upon things. Let me find one file. There's one thing I want to do that will make this easier. Not really easier, but will basically make. I don't know how to put this. Basically, I'm going to open a thing that will allow me to make names. That should make things a bit easier for what we're doing. If I can find the thing I use for that. Might just reopen it. Yep, we're going to reopen it. Half a second. Nope, it is open. Very good, very good. Here we are. We are going to generate a name. We're going to just generate a bunch of random details, of course. So, I suppose we should start with Here we are. We should start with. I need an idea. We'll just grab a corporation, one of the larger ones. We'll make a larger corporation. Here we go. To make a larger corporation, we will need a name. This will be a megacorp. Like as you've seen, we don't need a name, but we're going to get one. That will make life so much easier. Starts with an A. Ate. That one doesn't work. Ate. Here we are. Yes. Okay. Attis Corp. Not Corp. What kind of corporation are they? We need a good second half of it. Not name-wise, but is it Attis Industries? Attis Corp? Attis what? A good corporation ending. But we know that that's the name of the corp. Corp. Attis. Attis Specialty Products. There we are. I suppose that will do. Attis Specialty Products. And just like that, we have a corporation. So what I did there, because it might not have been obvious, is got a chart of, what's the word I'm looking for? A lot of sounds and words, starts of words from A to Z. You know, like A-N, A-A, A-B, well, not A-A, but so maybe, I don't know, I'd have to check. But, you know, lots of 1 to 3 letter starts. 1 letter to about, I think it goes to 4 letter starts of combinations using the dice here, rolled, and grabbed a few combinations of, well, here we grabbed 3 combinations of these things, slapped them together. One of them didn't work, so I just ignored it, but slapped them together and got a name. That's one way to name things, depending on how you want to name things. So there's different ways, of course, but I mean, there's lots of different ways to go about naming things, which is the problem. So, let's see here. Oh, it's not visible. That's, I mean, I know why. Because I forgot that the 2 sheets are not tied to each other. I need to actually scroll on this sheet to get it to appear. There we are. Sorry about that. So, Attis Specialty Products. I always feel slightly more confident working on an, a larger thing when I have a name for it. It's not like I need a name to work on something, but personally I just like having the name there because it lets me just, I don't know, I just work slightly easier on things when I have a name. Yeah, well. Attis Attis Specialty Products also. ASP. One thing we do here, of course, when making a corporation. We need a code for that corporation. Of course, that wouldn't be their entire code. Of course, we have a code based on their location and where they are and so forth, much as how people name planets, of course, but we have a galactic coordinate system. So, isn't an asp a snake? 1 second while I check. That would be neat. I'm pretty sure it's an animal of some kind. I'm not entirely familiar with Elysian animals. I'm sure we also have those in not Elysia. Terrans probably have those. We are a different dimension after all. It's a fish and a snake. Neat. And a caterpillar. Okay. So, Attis Specialty Products, ASP, produces. What do they work on? Nope. We're not going to say what they produce. Is one of the largest. I was going to say larger, but how about largest? One of the largest megacorps operating in the Terran nations. Obviously, it can't be the largest because we already have that. One of the largest megacorps of the Terran nations, not operating in, because that would just be a blatant lie. Because all the other corporations are larger and operate in there. For instance, we have Omnicorp, we have Point Combat Templates, we have a lot of organizations. I'd have to open my book of factions to find every single corporation name. But they're not one of the largest in the galaxy, thus not one of the largest operating in the Terran nations, but they are one of the largest corporations of the Terran nations. Let us make some personal notes. Attis operates. These are just personal notes for working on them in the future. Attis operates a large fleet of. Nope. Well, they do operate a large fleet, but what I'm trying to say is Attis has a large shipping fleet that operates both in and around the territories of the Terran nations. There, they do, they have been known to do long distance shipping out as far as where I know where I want, but I want to make sure I'm getting the name right. They are here. They will deal with the council, yes. Okay? Okay, let's go back to our. Nope, wrong one. They've been known to do long distance shipping into the council territories. There we are. What other notes do we have about them? Things I know that aren't necessarily part of the description that we should note down. They produce a wide variety of products. And are well known for their famous and are well known for producing a famous line of military products, along with providing. They're well known for a famous line of military products, news, and media. What else will they primarily food industry? Specifically, not good food, not like a restaurant chain or anything. What's that called? Not fast food. What's the word for it? Not lower quality, but not like, I don't quite know the word I'm looking for. We'll go with snack food. So they do military, news and media, snack food, but they have hands in everything. They are a megacorp in a space society. There's not much that they don't build. Okay, so we have some details about that. And from there, we can work on a variety of additional things for this corporation. Here, let's see. Let's see here. This is the right section. What Attis products shall we? Well, let me scroll this down. There we go. We're going to list some of the actual products, which will give us more to work with, of course. Energy bars slash drinks. Energy bars and drinks. There's a car they designed, specifically a sports car. Let's see. They'll make a motorbike, a sports car, and energy drink series. armor, personal armor specifically. They will make rifles, of course. They'll make an attack helicopter, a series of jets, specifically fighters, tanks, IFVs, IMVs. Basically, like I said, one of the things they're really known for is their military products. So, of course, they'll have quite a few military products. Let's see. What else should they do? I mean, they're going to be a megacorp. Like I said before, there's not much that they won't work on. But basically, here we are with our just a little basics. Like, this is not like our final thing, of course, but little notes for me of what to work on for this corporation as they operate on this world and a variety of other worlds. Specifically, we should note that just so I don't forget. I'm just going to note that up here. I'm not going to bother changing the thing. I'm just going to note has a variety of locations throughout Terran Nation space. I know I already mentioned that they operate in and around the Terran Nations, but there we go. So we have Addis Specialty Products. And from there, like as we go through our world building, this will provide us a lot of options to throw them in a variety of ways. Just from that, we can work on it both outside and inside of game, and it could come up as a thing that the bot can bring in our solo campaign. It could pull in the Addis Corp to use as a thing. So basically, for as the bot works via interpretation, if ever something comes up and it says a corporation or so forth, one of the options we might use will be Addis. And they might deal with, the world. Who knows? Let's see. What else? What else? I suppose let us work a little bit on descriptions. Why not? Just plain descriptions. Okay, here we are. Nope. Make sure we're scrolled to the right section. So one thing that is always fun is those little descriptions. We're going to give a brief overview, well, a brief description of the city. Section, specifically the section of the city. The air in the no. The subway opens into an underground. Of course, it opens into an underground. It's a subway, but an underground labyrinth of passageways and rooms. Passageways and rooms. People seem to go about their business slowly, despite people seem to go about their business slowly, despite the rush of the trains and the hectic nature of their loading and unloading. Occasionally, passengers departing will bump into the local denizens of the underground. Okay, new paragraph. Not going to bother with formatting. We're supposed to just get words down. So, here we go. So I lost. See, this is why we don't stop and think of other things, because then we lose our flow. I had an idea of exactly what I was considering. Now it's gone. 1 second while I try and re-grab the straws of what I was going to say. This is why you don't delay. You got to get it all down there and then refine. Let's see. It was something about the people here. The area, we'll just start going again. The area seems run down as loose panels, stains, and rust, decayed posters and rust cover the walls of the station. Despite this, small pockets of individuals are completely avoided. Oh well. A lone technician can be seen working on the wiring of a station light. A lone technician can be seen working on the wiring of the station light. There we go. That's some. But basically, I mean, this one isn't ideal. I'm already not liking this whole one, but basically, when I say short descriptions of objects and items and things, I mean, and areas, this is what I mean. Like a little bit of just descriptive text about the location or the item or just some little details there that build upon it. See, with this, we know that, well, the implication here is that the people around here aren't necessarily the passengers. There are passengers who come and go, but there are people just milling about, lingering. The station's run down. This technician is futilely working on a light when everything else is broken and decayed, and basically it's not the best place to be. You know? The hearts of the people here the people here aren't enthused. And there's possibly some sort of criminal organization going around that the locals know about. Because, as you see, small pockets of individuals are completely avoided, implying that why? A player might ask, why are these people avoided? And it's here, I know, that it's likely because those individuals are in the gangs, as we know that this area is heavily gang controlled. But if a player is just arriving here, they might be curious as to why are the local denizens avoiding pockets when they are bumping into, well, why not the local denizens, the other people, avoiding these pockets while bumping into, on occasion, the local denizens? Because these are criminals who have a reputation around these parts and are they're gangsters, and they're avoiding them and so forth, and gives a world. Anyway. 1 second, my apologies. I need to grab something. I'll be right back. Here we are. We return. So, where were we? Ah, yes. Detailing and how it builds upon a world. So, with that, we sort of have an idea of this location now, and what's going on there, and what it's sort of like. And with that, there is more to build from there. Like there's endless things to build. We provide a sci-fi universe. There's endless things to work on. There we are, looking for a thing. Okay. Perhaps. What? Let's see. Have to re-find the work file. There it is. So, now we have something about this local area. One thing I suppose will pop open, if I can find one. No, we won't work on that right now. One thing that we can go over sometime is organizations and how those all work. I assume, so far, that, well, the way characters work is simple enough. I say simple enough, I mean, there's a rather stat block and all that, but I mean, it's not too far from normal D&D that you wouldn't understand how it works. It's easy enough. But, I mean, organizations work the same. I think I've noticed this before. They have a similar stat block to a person, but slightly different. But there's lots of stuff to go over. I mean, my goal here, eventually, is to have a series in which we can cover that kind of thing. I mean, we could do that on Solo Sunday, but we'd have to get an organization. And starting an organization is expensive. Well, to any degree that actually provides benefit. So the way I suppose we'll talk about, we've done some of what we were supposed to cover, so let's get off topic a little bit. Organizations have a similar stat block to a person, but it works differently. Organizations take actions via units. Organizations are comprised of units. These units contain generally, well, this isn't necessarily true. We'd have to get into the entire workings of it to explain, but organizations consist of units of 100 for workers or 50 for specialty units, which do the actions of an organization. Technically, a player character can, and or any of these singular characters can take actions, but on the organizational scale, these are the units that take actions to get things done. However, that when I said that it's not true before saying 150, 150, not 150, is specifically, technically, a smaller organization can have percentages of these amounts, and there's an entire system for that, but that's for smaller organizations, and it's not really relevant, I don't think. Anyway, and their stats are gained via money and upgrading their stats and acquiring facilities and all that, rather than, like normal characters who have to either buy augments or level up or train and so forth. These ones, you spend money to get or acquire resources to increase your stats. Then they send out their units to take actions and so forth. And there's an entire system for it and things to buy, items to provide benefits. And the entire point of everything is to be sort of fluid, a representation of a living world, if you will, meaning, well, lots of things. We have a system in which a lot of things provide bonuses based on certain things. For instance, as I described, maybe this sensor package has a penalty of -2. Before we said 1, but maybe this sensor package has a -2 in storms. Or maybe this, or the organization has acquired fancy product that gives them a +1 on this, or etc. on that. And there's an entire system for applying these benefits. And then that switches over to the nation scale. Organization. So it basically goes player, organization, and then nation. Nation being kind of the larger scale, and person, character being the sort of smallest scale. Kind of. I mean, from you can play as a person, that's kind of the smallest scale, one would say. And nation being the largest because you can play as a nation. Kind of. You play as a nation-ish. You play as a person running a nation. Sort of. I mean, you play as a person running a nation, so you kind of play as the nation, depending on. I mean, technically, you can have like a democracy, and then there's a chance you could get voted out. And theoretically, depending on what the campaign's like, that might be the end of your being able to play that nation, or maybe we let you play as the next person. It really depends on the type of campaign you're going for. If you're playing as the nation, yeah, that might be a swap. But if you're playing as the person, maybe not, because you've gotten voted out. Not that that'll ever happen here, given that I have a title. That's like, it's not like we have votes on any such thing. I own the star systems, so I mean, good old empire. Sort of an empire. Well, that's the. So, I mean, we're going off topic again, but in our nation system, we actually have a bunch of policies and basically choices you make when making a nation. If you want to like make a nation, technically, you can like acquire a nation, you can found a nation. If you want to change like the policies and politics of your nation, depending on what your nation is, you might have to vote, you might have to deal with groups. There's an entire system for running nations. But basically, every nation has its own categories of what its government is built on. And here in the Empire, many nations have choices. Here in the Empire, we have quite a few choices of which specific ones to choose. The Empire is technically feudal, kind of, given the fact that there are lords and vassals, and we pay tithes to the higher lords than us. But our citizens are not serfs. However, there's mandatory conscription, which isn't necessarily military. We have military conscription, but we also have basic conscription, and both are covered under the Imperial conscription program. However, they can work in the factories and produce the goods. So technically, that's like it's not serfdom. They get paid. They get paid well. I think we've been over this before. It's around 400,000 Galactic Standard credits for 2 years, which I believe is above average. It's either average or above average for Galactic Standards. So, it's not bad. Additionally, with all the benefits and the joy of living in the Empire. So there's that. Anyway, so feudal is like an option, technically. We're technically a empire. So that's the thing about the Empire. The core empire can be classified as an empire. The sub-governments that make up the empire wouldn't really take the empire faction choice, now would they? Because they're not empires themselves. They're sub-factions of the empire with their own political systems. For instance, the empire, well, at least here, our government type is dictatorship. Here, so, let's see, I can actually bring up our organization file. Imperial organizations. Nations and organizations. Here we are. Scroll all the way to the top here. Yes. Nope, wrong section. This is the nation section for how to run one, not how to build one. Here we are. Government types, good stuff. Here we are. So, here in the Empire, we are, of course, an empire, but that's the overarching government type. Specifically, due to the type that breaks down into sub-governments, and our sub-government here is basically always any one, well, not any one, but basically every imperial lord, government-wise, there's the imperial lord, and then basically whatever is allowed under imperial law. For instance, like imperial lords will subdivide their territories into more, and all that. Anyway, and each one of these provides a benefit and a setback. Well, benefits and setbacks. For instance, we here with our dictatorship section acquire a +5 on loyalty checks due to cracking down on dissent. Good stuff. And however, on the downside, anytime a 1 is rolled on a loyalty check, rebels appear that we have to deal with. Yes. And they acquire their funding from the private economy system. However, the authoritarian and military factions do not rebel on a 1, but practically every other faction can rebel. Specifically, 1 is chosen to rebel on a 1, except for the military and the authoritarian government factions. And the dictatorship may adopt an oligarchy, senate, ministry, etc. as it sees fit. However, the power in the end lay in the dictator, we acquire a +4 to force score, +2 response, +2 resources, +2 information, +0 occult, and +2 influence, +2 on authoritarian loyalty checks, and +2 on military loyalty checks. And not having to deal with the entire system of factions voting, because there is an entire system for factions voting. You want to get a policy passed, you have to vote. And then all the well, that's not entirely true. I say all the factions. Technically, there are several major factions that get to roll, and then you have to make checks involving, what's it called? Like influence checks, and we use the, whatchamacallit, debate system. We use the debate system to see who wins against the other factions and what policies get passed if there's enough votes. Or it gridlocks, nothing gets passed, and, well, you know. But we don't have to deal with that here in the Empire. Every lord, I mean, we also have to deal with Imperial lords fighting each other constantly, but you know, let's see. So, we got off topic to nations, but organizations, of course, this faction, what's it called? I know that their abbreviation's ASP. What is their name again? Attis? Yes, Attis. Attis should at some point acquire a nation sheet, which will allow us to accurately track what they can and can't do. However, they are a megacorp, so it's very much likely that they will have a maximized organization sheet with maximum subsidiary organizations, more than likely. Because they are, as stated, one of the larger megacorps in the Terra nations, meaning they are likely absolutely maximized. Of course, that doesn't mean that they're the strongest. Maximized does not necessarily mean has everything. It just means money-wise, they will have probably purchased maximums in a lot of their stats. It doesn't mean they have to have, it's just likely given them money that they would. But it doesn't mean that their facilities cover everything. Although they probably do. They are a near sectus, multi-sector, because the Terra nations are multiple sectors, they're a multi-sector spanning megacorp. So likely there's not a lot they don't have. However, they're not on the nation scale, which is even larger. For instance, Omnicorp is on the nation scale. They are technically a corporation with sub-corporations and so forth, and subsidiaries and all that, but they are on the nation scale, and such, well, do that stuff. Technically, our CRISP system and our nation system and organization system still need a bit of fine-tuning. We're always working on Galactic Requiem, but they need a bit of fine-tuning to get perfectly set up. Because they come from some other things, but they're heavy custom. Like, a lot of the work on them is severely custom. So it's still, you know, it works, it runs, I'm thinking of where it would be. I would say it's past alpha. I wouldn't say it's past, it's definitely past alpha. I'm not sure if it's past, you know, beta testing and the like, but I mean, you know, it's implemented, it works, but it still needs fine tuning. So, you know. And what else? I mean, there's lots of stuff. Well, let's see. So that's part of the whole thing. So I think I've been over this before. Well, let's ramble. Let's stop trying not to. Let's ramble. So now that we've, because it's coffee time technically. And we might have coffee and continue, might have coffee and not. Who knows? So we'll ramble at this point. We'll try and talk about the topic, but also ramble. We've already started rambling, so let's see. A lot of we try to have stats and rules for everything, and for the most part we do. So everything runs smoothly, you know. Vehicles have stats. I think I've been over this. Everything's interchangeable with each other. A person can shoot a starship can shoot a person. All things translate basically one to one, give or take. A few slight things. For instance, like I think I said before, people and nations work together ish. They do tie together. People do make the rules, and organizations support people's roles and the like. That's one of the things I was going to talk about before I got distracted off topic. Organizations and nations have this neat system where they can personally affect your roles or additional not organizational, what's it called? They can affect your roles and they can affect units roles, units being the workers and specialty units. They affect their roles and provide basically benefits or setbacks, but usually 99% of the time benefits. I mean, unless your organization's real bad. And if it doesn't provide benefits, don't use that aspect of the organization, you know? What I mean by that is organizations have skills like people. However, when an organization uses a skill check, it makes a check, it compares, and it basically provides you a personal bonus on your check. So if you want to roll a craft check and you want to say, I need help from this organization, and the organization is designed into crafting, it makes its skill check, and if it succeeds by a certain amount, I believe 10, I believe the standard assist is 10, so if it rolls 10, it provides you like a +2, and for every 5 over, it provides an additional +1 to your check. So a large organization can provide a vast bonus in getting something done. However, a smaller one can't. But there are costs, and it basically requires the organization to spend its time and resources to do that. Organizations also provide a variety of other resources. We'll probably cover organizations sometime because there's an entire system for nations and organizations in how they support players and how they go about things and how much resources they can pull and how you have to, like, just because an organization is there, they have so many resources they can supply and so many things they can do. And when doing these things, it also, they're not necessarily going to help every worker. You have to make a request, it has to go through, it takes time, and if it does go through, they might work with you or they will if it goes through, but if it might not go through, they might not necessarily help you because who are you? If you run the organization, well then yes, but if you work for an organization, there are benefits, and it's mostly almost all words hard. It's a benefit to work for an organization because they provide you benefits. However, there are obligations. For instance, if you work for an organization, basically you're going to have to work for them or they won't work with you. And, you know, they won't always, you can't walk up to an organization as, say, how do we put this? Well, let's use Attis for an example. If you are a loader and unloader of cargo, then you work for Attis. They're not going to, if you make a request for a combat team, Attis is going to say, look at your rank, because there's an entire rank system too, but like you're in the department of loading and unloading cargo. Why? Who are you? Is this for not government, they're corporations, is this for corporate purposes? Like what, why, who? No. Go away. You can have an assault team. But you know, if you're high up in the org with a ranking and you're in security and you request an assault team, then yeah, you might receive an assault team to assist you. It really depends. So like just because you work for an organization doesn't mean you get all their benefits, but you know, they will provide benefit and the like, and you know. We also have a system for ranking up and gaining position and so forth in organizations and all that. Owning organizations, running organizations, same with nations, as we've just been over, and just all this stuff. Anyway, as we have gone off topic and it is coffee time, I think we will call it there for the day. Before we go more off topic, we've covered a lot of what we wanted to cover and what we set out to cover. We will do more work like this next time. Well, not next time, but next world building time. Because next session is Solo Sunday, in which we'll actually run the game. And we'll get down into the personal scale and all that. So, I hope to see you there. Thank you all for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed. And have a good day.